Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to another 3ds Max tutorial. This time we are covering um, how to use some of the advanced tools in 3ds Max. Today we're not going to go over the basic tools. That has already been covered. You can find that on my YouTube channel, or you could find like a general introduction tutorial online. So let's review some of the tools and other modifiers within Max. So we see here in our viewport that we have our three basic primitives: our sphere, our cube, and our cylinder. Oh, I almost forgot. Um, I am using a new version of 3ds Max, so your version may be different than mine. So it really doesn't matter. Most of the tools are the same. It's just a new, beautiful UI scheme. So, anyways, enough of this. Enough being sidetracked. Let's get started. So, technically, when we um, use a modifier um, for edit poly, usually. So, let me just clone this for a second, so we know what we're talking about. Now, usually, we would convert this to an edit poly. There's also a modifier which you can add in a edit poly. Now I'll go over this later. We can also add in another modifier, like say for example Turbosmooth. So if I go into Turbosmooth, so what Turbosmooth is if I go and click on Turbosmooth, or you could just find down the list where Turbosmooth is. So if I scroll down here, you can find it right down where tessellate is. So when we look at Turbosmooth, we can increase the iterations. This is great for high polygon modeling, but I'll explain how this would work. Now in edit poly, we can also select polygons as well. Have different we can apply different modifiers. So that's the beauty of it. So say for example, I edit in this, or actually I could just hit 4 on the keyboard, and then I could just select these two polygons. And if I go to extrude, sure, normally we can extrude this low poly. Once I add all my other modifiers, I can edit this. I can still edit this as well, and it pretty much becomes part of my new high poly. And if I press F4, if I turn shaded off, it's starting to look more like one of those medical wooden beaters that you would just use just to crunch down like pills. Very smooth, and it actually works pretty well when you have edge faces on. Now, let's talk about the ribbon tools. Now, in the ribbon tools, we can find n-gon. So say, for example, this polygon and this polygon, and just a few others. So I'm just going to select like a few, just to give you guys like a good example. So if I press Control Delete, usually this is pretty bad, because we would have like tessellation issues. I mean, we would have n-gon issues. So technically these are illegal faces. So just to recall what n-gons are. N-gons are our vertex is a polygon that is more than four vertices. This is six. This is a 6 polygonal face, and it's really not a good face either. So let's see if we can find the rest that we just did. So I'm going to go into face right here, or if I could just press 4. I go into binumeric, go to greater than 4, and all my n-gons would be found. And one by one, I would just slowly connect them and blah blah blah. But what I could also do to fix this error is just to remove that particular modifier, and it's already gone. So you don't need to do all the painstaking work in making this. You can, however, but also remember, if you want to actually apply to these changes later. So actually, there is actually one more thing that we can do before we can actually talk a little bit more further. So I'm going to select these polygons real quick. And then I'm going to go over to chamfer. I'm going to also now here's also another problem as well that we're also getting here. We're also getting these faces, these n-gons that I've explained earlier. So there's two ways of fixing this. One, I could ring all these faces and press Control-Shift-E or just press Connect. And then I would go into vertices and just press Control-Shift-E to fix these issues. Or I can go over to the ribbon modeling tools. And now over in modeling, I can press Swift Loop. Now what Swift Loop does is we can create, it automatically highlights and calculates where your actual edge loop is going to be. Now, just for fun, if I hold down Shift and click, it'll actually distort the edge flow, where it will actually try to make the object more round. So if I do that all the way, oops, let me just get rid of that. Let me just get rid of those faces. And I could just go and select these guys right here. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Control-Shift-E. Now when we apply the Turbosmooth modifier, the difference now is when we see our model it fixes the geometrical problems that we had. But the problem is these faces right here is more creased than the others because we still have that triangled face. So pressing F4 to bring back edge loops, we need to chamfer these vertices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these guys, press detach, or actually I could just press detach by poly. I could just press detached element. Then I can go back to the vertices by pressing 1, and I can actually go and select these vertices and press chamfer. Now already it's going to help us create our polygons. While it's doing its job to help out, it's really not helping us in this certain situation, because we only need these type of faces to help us chamfer this properly, because we're only making quads. We're only converting those tri edges as quads, so we can have good edge flow in our model. So you want to always keep that in mind when you're actually making this. So I'm going to select these polys, delete them. And then I'm just going to hit chamfer right here. Just going to bring this up. Not too much. I'm going to press OK. Then I'm going to press 5 to go into element right here. And then I can just move this back to it. Another simple tool that we can use to help us model this out are a few things. Now, technically, when we actually scale, when we need to realign these vertices or just move them back into place, we need to make sure that it would snap properly. So technically, I wouldn't technically know if they were actually aligned. So if we press Alt X, we need to align them if we need to weld them properly. So I'm going to press S for snaps. Now by default, it's probably going to look on your screen that it may not be on by default, or make sure in grid snap settings when you right click to check off grid points and put on vertex right here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move this here, and then I am going to select these group of vertices and hit weld. So we want to pay attention to this as well. So when we weld 205, 197, I'm going to bring this up a bit, 193, 191, 189, checking all corners, pressing OK. Now to double check if this is all welded, we're going to go over to the right corner, the right side of the screen, or the right side of the top right-hand corner of the viewport. Go to X View and click on Open Edges. If it's highlighted in green, if this edge loop is highlighted green like this one, it means it's not welded. So you would have to go into the vertex itself and move it around to see in those areas to see if either of these two vertices or anywhere else that's showing a green line that's connected between here and there, for example. So you would have to move the vertices to check to see if it's welded together. So, since we fixed that issue, we should be able to get something out of this. So back into my modifier, I'm turning on Turbosmooth. Well, before I turn on Turbosmooth, I'm going to click off F4. And then we should see our rough low poly version of this. But when I turn Turbosmooth, notice how it fixes those crease marks right there. That's what I mean when you need to have good edge flow in your model. It's important to have that. Now let's take a look at our sphere. So I'm going to convert this to an editable poly, just for time's sake. And I'm going to press F4. Now another tool I'm going to show you, Max, is the Freeform Tools. In my other videos, I explain about retopology, or I'll have to double check to see if I did included a video for retopology, or you could search up a video on retopology online. There's some good videos. There's a few tools that are a lot similar to ZBrush. So when I hit the conform brush, you'll notice that there's a few interesting things that comes with it. There's like a little brush settings. There's a scale setting. There's move, rotate, and relax. And then there's also the paint deformation that we'll talk more about in a few minutes. So notice every time I move a actual group of polygons. So say, for example, so I push a few vertices. It's not really giving me that much since I'm selecting like a few areas to move these vertices. And I can hold Control and Alt to adjust the conform and fallout. But really, I would just be creating more of a mess. And then you could adjust the mirror axis by Y, Z. And adjusting the conform setting. You can also extrude out like a few sections of it. Make it more bumpier. Make it more crumpled up. And now when we press F4 to look at it, this looks like someone's already trying to bitten off an apple. But this is more of a rudimentary tool for doing like low poly sculpting. And then the next tool I'm going to talk about more, I think if you were probably doing something like a low poly terrain in Max, and that you want to bring it into Unreal, you would probably be using this more. So when you actually select a few of these objects, we can see like Autodesk provides like a little short tutorial on how some of the tools work. So Shift is to relax the mesh, Control is to revert the mesh, Control Shift is to resize the brush, and Shift Alt is to change the brush size. So I'm going to press Control, and then I'm just going to do this, just revert it, or just make it bigger. But we're probably just making more of a weird mesh out of this. So I'm just going to press E, and then just rotate, and then just rotate this. And then I'll just do the same thing, and then I'll just show you how this would work. Yeah. 4. So I probably made this extremely high, and that's what I did. I made this high on purpose just so I could show you a good example of this little high poly box. So if you want to tell like how big in vertices or polygons it is, you can go over to where we found XView for open edges, and then you can go over to show statistics. So far it's showing the total polygons and the total vertice count. So our total polygons in the scene is rendering at 43,000 polygons in total. You're probably going to be working on projects that are more around a few tens of millions of polygons. So it's pretty normal. It's pretty normal to work that way. Go into front. Okay, so statistics. This is what I was looking for in viewport configuration. So once again, press apply, go back. So to find this again, just go to plus, configure viewports, statistics, go and press total and selection. And hit apply, and then OK. Now when I select my polygon, and I press 7, it's telling me that this polygon is 24,000, this box, my apologies, is 24,000 polygons. Well, almost 25,000. So it's probably like almost the exact polygon count as an actual character, and this is 800. So this should be interesting. So let's use the noise brush for a second and talk about that. So since we've added like more vertices, we can add like, we can make this even rockier too. Or we can actually use this as an actual base mesh in ZBrush, and then all that we just have to use is just use use a few brushes like the clay tubes brush and the trim dynamic brush. So as you've already seen by now, it's already making more of an organic, it's more turning into an organic mess. So when we see in our edge loops, we can see more clearly that that when we actually make it more high poly, we can actually make it more. We can actually use the one of these brushes, relax or noise, in the freeform selection, and the freeform section of the ribbon modeling tools, to help make this create like more of an organic mess, or more like helping us out in creating a small high poly base mesh that we can bring into ZBrush later. And then I can just go back and just undo what I just had. So let me do like a quick example noise. And I think Max took a nosedive on me. Oh well. So at least you know at least you know how it works. At least it's better than nothing. Alrighty. And then finally our cylinder. What else have we not talked? Object paint and populate. These are just more like this is more like if you want to like paint like your actual model. But there's also some other tools that we can also talk about as well. So say for example, I can select like a few polygons, but I select like some random ones, and then I just press extrude. And the problem is, I don't have time to go into the scale tool and scale this all the way to 0. So I just press planar. That's what I could do, is go into make planar, just to make my life easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press delete right here. And I'm going to introduce you to a very, very powerful tool that's really easy. It's really, really easy, and has helped me a lot over the years too. when I was learning 3ds Max and also making my object is the symmetry modifier. So the symmetry modifier is a very powerful tool. This will help me in making a very good symmetrical objects. So I'd also remember when you go into the drop-down menu below, you could also access the tools like mirror. Also the same thing too in editable poly. And then thus I could just easily do this all over again. And then just make this high poly. Just like that. And I think the next time we actually talk more about high polygonal models, we'll definitely talk more about the difference between edge flows. And I could just press chamfer just to make my life easier. And I could go up to 4, and that should be about it. And I should make a very good impressing arch too. So anyways, I hope you like the video tutorial. And the next time I'm on, we'll talk more about high poly modeling. So until next time, visit me on Facebook. You can visit me on, well, Facebook is one of them, but Twitter, and also you could also see my ArtStation page. Doink. Ooh. More cool stuff. So anyways, until then, I will see you soon. Cheers.